Chapter 9:16, Our Song Will Summon a Golden Phoenix. Zhang Weiyu and the rest lit up a torch and illuminated the cave. All the group leaders gathered and waited for instructions. People walked in and out of the cavern. It was noisy, as if they were actually fighting a war. Although the Imperial Palace soldiers had led teams while they were still training, they were only teachers. Other people led the troops. These were people who they had selected based on their many years of experience and foresight. It was said that if the leader was not outstanding, the rest of the team would not be outstanding either. Although the situation at the Qinglu Mountains had been slowly influenced by Lu Shu, to the extent that they did not know what the result would be, choosing a leader was still extremely important. After all, not only did the leader have to control the troop and give flawless commands, they had to influence the thoughts of their soldiers and ensure that all of them were on the same page. Thus, after 10 days of training, Zhang Weiyu and the rest spent a whole night discussing before they decided on a leader. The people who had been chosen seemed to be more reliable. A leader said softly, "I heard from Haitan that the Great Lord wants to attack the Qingxai army. With such a large formation, they definitely want to stealthily see our standards. We must perform well. What if the Great Lord is disappointed with us? What will we do? Although I am slightly scared, we are right to follow the Great Lord. I still aspire to reach rank 1 like him. I heard that we don't have to train today. I'm happy." A group of people looked at the person who said this. Fellow sufferers sympathize with one another. Needless to say, training was much more painful than this. Zhang Weiyu looked up and glanced at them. He said to the other Imperial Palace soldiers in a small voice, "We have to fight a good fight today. If not, they will feel conflicted just after they have advanced and been praised. Their inflated spirits will be affected. It will not be easy to pull them back after that." Typical armies were all calm in their thoughts. They could not allow their soldiers to be complacent. After all, an army puffed up with pride was bound to be defeated. But the Weiwu army was different. A pile of mud had suddenly turned into concrete. Zhang Weiyu had to allow them to continue to be proud. Once they reached a higher level, they would wear down their arrogance. If not, the mud would remain as mud forever. This revealed Zhang Weiyu's thoughts. He was afraid that the Weiwu army was not proud enough. This was not the time to talk to the Weiwu army about remaining modest either. Thus, when Zhang Weiyu and the rest were guiding combat, they were very serious. They were even more serious than when they were guiding the Imperial Dragon soldiers. After all, enemies would be terror-stricken at just the mention of the Imperial Dragon soldiers. They had enough power. They really did not have to be so serious. Zhang Weiyu looked up and gathered the 7 leaders. He said with a serious tone, "I need the 7 of you to lead the rest and harass the Qingxai army. There's no need for you to engage in actual combat with them. We just have to make them confused about our intentions." The 7 of them asked curiously, "What should we do?" Zhang Weiyu glanced at them. "Do you really need me to tell you? Why don't I eat your meals for you? You no longer have to eat." When everyone heard this, they realized that if they did not complete this task, they would have nothing to eat. Thus, they had to finish this. After the 7 leaders left, Zhang Weiyu gathered 10 squad leaders. Go to Tunyun Mountains and block the Qingxai army's path to the north. Find a way to ambush them. If they chase after you, use the geography of this place to shake them off if there are a lot of them. If only a few people are chasing you, go into the limestone cavern and surround them. If you can capture them alive, then do so. But do not be overzealous in fighting. This was the strategy that Lu Shu had asked Zhang Weiyu to adopt. Lu Shu did not quite understand the rest, but he requested that this time, they would engage in guerrilla warfare. Zhang Weiyu thought that this was a good idea. This way, when the Black Feather army came, the Weiwu army would have sufficient experience. The Qingxai army was carefully heading towards the Tunyun Mountains. They had realized that there were many entrances and exits to the caves. The Weiwu army might appear at any time. Although the Qingxai army was very tired after escaping from the Black Feather army for half a month, and did not have enough to eat or wear, they were still elites. They were determined. At that moment, the Qingxai army suddenly realized that something was wrong. They realized that some people had suddenly appeared not too far away in the mountains. The Qingxai army was alert. The Weiwu army had disappeared for some time. They thought that the Weiwu army had ran away in fear, but they had appeared again. Furthermore, there were only a few people. What's going on? But before they could react, a few more people appeared on another mountain. Then, they started to sing. Brother Weiwu, Sister Tun Yun. If we have chemistry, let's sing together. Then, there was singing from another mountain. Brothers and sisters, let's sing. Alcohol doesn't make people drunk. People make themselves drunk. The Qingxai army was confused. What in the world was happening? We are fighting a battle here. Why was a group of uncles singing folk songs to one another in the mountains? Could you be more serious? To be honest, the Weiwu army was also in despair. Zhang Weiyu had only told them to confuse the Qingxai army and make them lost. But he did not tell them exactly what to do. In reality, leaders always wanted results from a battle. They did not care what you did. This was how outstanding soldiers were differentiated. If they were good enough, they would think of their own method according to the request from their leader. If they were not good enough, they would not be able to come up with a solution. Now, the troops were panicking. On their way here, they thought about what Zhang Weiyu had said. How would they confuse the Qingxai army? When the Qingxai army saw the Weiwu army, they immediately prepared to attack. But it did not seem as if the Weiwu army intended to attack them. They continued to sing their folk songs. As long as we have goodwill, our song will summon a golden phoenix. The Qingxai army was dumbfounded. To be honest, the Qingxai army had fought many battles, but they had never seen this type of army. So what was the Weiwu army doing in the parade square all along? Someone from the Qingxai army sighed. Capture them, said Lui Zhao in a cold voice. Let's see what they have up their sleeves. The vanguard immediately rushed out. But when they were halfway up the mountain, the Weiwu army had disappeared. Everyone from the Qingxai army suddenly realized that the soldiers of the Weiwu army were extraordinarily fast. Someone said in a low tone, "Commander, I have sensed how far away they are. There are more than 10 of them. No one is below rank 4. There are quite a few rank 3s. When Lui Zhao heard this, he was dumbfounded. They might be the elites from the Weiwu army, so they are relatively stronger. Even an elite army like the Qingxai army had many rank 5s. The Black Feather army was the same. Lui Zhao did not believe that a lousy army like the Weiwu army did not even have a rank 5. Chapter 9:17, The Rise of the Weiwu Army. When the Weiwu army ran away after singing their folk songs, the Qingxai army heaved a sigh of relief. It was not because they were being threatened. It was because the scene they had just witnessed was far too mysterious. Who would expect that they would suddenly start to sing in such a serious atmosphere, where everyone was prepared to fight? No one fought like this. But before the Qingxai army could heave a sigh of relief, a few people appeared on yet another mountain. The young man and young lady like each other. The young lady wants to make the young man her sweetheart. The Qingxai army solemnly stood at the foot of the mountain. It was painful to watch. There was something wrong with the Weiwu army. It was hard to imagine what the Weiwu army typically did in their campsite. This time, Lui Zhao took action. He took a few people with him to listen and uncover the actual situation. But before he could fly to the mountain, it was peaceful again. He felt a massive threat underground. The threat was moving around and hesitating. They did not start a massacre. They simply locked on to Lu Yizhao as their target. It was as if they were warning him not to act rashly. Lu Yizhao knew very clearly that the expert underground was definitely at least rank 1. It seemed as if the expert had brought a few other experts along with them. They were prepared to deliver a lightning-fast fatal blow to Lu Yizhao or the Qingxai army. Since when did the Weiwu army have such experts? Lu Yizhao furrowed his eyebrows. Even if it was the Black Feather Army, the commander of the Black Feather Army was a rank 2. This was before they had entered the North region. But now, the Weiwu army had a rank 1. Lu Yizhao now felt that the Weiwu army was full of mysteries, especially after they had started singing folk songs. Lu Yizhao, who had wanted to attack, could no longer move. He had been trapped. He had to prepare himself for when the enemy suddenly attacked and engaged in a massacre of the Qingxai army. If he still had his trump card, Lu Yizhao could send out people to fight. But now, not only did he have to take care of his subordinates, he had to protect himself against the mysterious Weiwu army. Lu Yizhao sighed. He knew that he had underestimated the Weiwu army. It was as if the Weiwu army was no longer the Weiwu army of the past. But not much time had passed. How did they grow so much? But Lu Yizhao had his own pride. As an Imperial Dragon soldier, a typical rank 1 was no match for him. To him, the enemy underground did not dare to attack. If they did, they would not make it back alive. When the Qingxai army returned, they said in a serious tone, "Commander, out of all the soldiers who have appeared, there are no rank 5s. Even the rank 3s are very powerful. We have to be careful. I don't think that this is the Weiwu army. The Weiwu army does not have the terrifying power that they have." Lu Yizhao nodded his head. Pass down the command. Everyone has to be on their guard. As the Qingxai army continued to travel within the mountains, the sound of folk songs could occasionally be heard. It was as if the Weiwu army was in high spirits while singing. After all, they were familiar with the caves. If the Qingxai army chased them, they would disappear. They could sing without any stress. The Qingxai army could hear the folk songs from the mountains. It suddenly felt somewhat absurd. It did not seem real. But the next moment, soldiers from the Weiwu army suddenly appeared from the forest and started killing. They did not fight alone. Instead, they worked together. It was as if everyone who had been hiding in the caves all appeared at the same time. The Qingxai army was suddenly surrounded and could not react in time. But the soldiers from the Weiwu army did not intend to fight for a long time. After they defeated a few soldiers who were at the edges of the Qingxai army, they ran away. Some soldiers from the Qingxai army chased after them, but the Weiwu army soldiers fought for a while before they disappeared into the holes. One of them even took a spear away from a Qingxai army soldier. The Qingxai army knew that the Weiwu army definitely had something up their sleeves, but they were taken by surprise. After all, they were using the geography of the land to their advantage. Furthermore, they were surprised that the Weiwu army was extraordinarily strong. The Qingxai army was not weaker than the Black Feather army. Their cavalry could even defeat the Black Feather army. Although the Weiwu army ran away after ambushing the Qingxai army, they even stole spears. How absurd! What were they doing, taking people and spears away? The soldiers of the Qingxai army could not accept this result. They were facing the Weiwu army. If this had happened on Earth, it was as if Lu Shu had gone to the market and bought something worth $20 from the Jiangnan leather factory, only to sell it for $20,000. A subordinate reported to Lu Yizhao. "It is indeed the Weiwu army. I saw the assistant commander, Lu Qianji. I have fought him in the past. But for some reason, he is already rank 2, even though he was stuck at rank 3 for 7 years due to the lack of techniques. Furthermore, among the troops that ambushed us, there were at least 5 people who had the strength of a rank 2. There are also countless rank 3s. At first, everyone thought that the rank 4s who had been singing in the mountains were definitely the elites. But now, they realized that they had underestimated the Weiwu army. This was the Weiwu army. The subordinate felt very powerless. It felt as if the world had turned upside down. But Lu Yizhao laughed. We escaped the Black Feather army, but now we're stuck in the hands of the Weiwu army? Commander, the subordinate desperately looked at Lu Yizhao. He was worried that Lu Yizhao would not be able to tolerate this. The subordinate felt that no one would be able to accept that an elite army had been defeated by a useless one. But Lu Yizhao did not seem depressed. There is a strong leader behind the Weiwu army. We will not have much deficit if we lose. Relax. I don't think anything will happen to those who have been captured. It seemed too early to admit their loss, but Lu Yizhao was a wise man. When he realized that there was a rank 1 expert underground, and that the Weiwu army had suddenly become very strong, he had guessed the outcome of this battle. But Lu Yizhao was not worried. He knew that the enemy had no intention of killing them. Everything that had happened seemed like training. Thus, Lu Yizhao slowly calmed down and remained quiet. If the Weiwu army and Qingsai army fought each other, it was hard to determine who would win. The Qingsai army could defeat the Weiwu army, who had power but lacked courage. As long as all their soldiers did not die, the Qingsai army would be fine. But this sort of guerrilla warfare aligned with the mentality of the Weiwu army. If they could not defeat their enemies, they would run away. As they slowly fought, the soldiers of the Weiwu army suddenly realized that the fabled elites of the Qingsai army were not as strong as them. Thus, as they fought, this group of cowards became more confident. They became more aggressive when they fought. The Weiwu army had realized that they only needed to have a rank 2 lead the ambush. The Qingsai army had fewer rank 2s than the Weiwu army. Thus, they would not be able to put up an effective defense. Furthermore, the Qingsai army did not dare to chase them into the caves. Some tried to go into the caves, but they could not find the Weiwu army. They almost got lost on their way back. The Weiwu army fought like rascals. Furthermore, while they engaged in guerrilla warfare, there were even people singing folk songs on the mountains. Were you out of your minds? Chapter 9:18 Surrender. An army who had risen had definitely stepped on the bodies of the dead. Once they saw blood, they would use their victories to complete their transformation. The Qingsai army had come at the right time. They had traveled long distances and lacked food and clothing. On the other hand, the Weiwu army simply waited at ease for their enemy. The Qingsai army's combined strength was no match for the Weiwu army. They did not have as much people as well. This allowed Lu Shu to train his soldiers with ease of mind. Although Lu Shu did not go into the limestone cave, he had established a treaty of alliance with the soldiers of the Weiwu army. Even if he was not at the battlefield, he could survey the entire situation. He had an even clearer view than Zhang Weiyu. As Lu Shu trained his swordplay, he observed the situation. He paid close attention to Zhang Weiyu's commands and tried to learn his commanding skills. Lu Shu was not competent in commanding, but he was willing to learn. The history of cultivation on Earth was not as long as in this world. Once he learned, he could bring these advanced commanding techniques back home. He tried to make Li Haitan and the rest steal a spear, but realized that even an elite army like the Qingsai army did not prepare any magical spears. This surprised Lu Shu. There were many magical items in the remains that had been opened up on Earth. He had thought that magical items were common in this world, but realized that this was not the case. After all, the remains on Earth were like treasure coves that had been meticulously concealed by someone, waiting for someone else to dig it up. There was something wrong here. The Weiwu army did not stop disturbing the Qingsai army. The Qingsai army grew smaller and smaller, while the Weiwu army seemed very motivated. The folk songs in the mountains did not stop. It was as if the brother and sister in the song would get married happily tonight. The soldiers of the Qing army found themselves in this situation. They listened to folk songs while their lives were in danger. They were about to collapse. They were not this stressed even when they fought the Black Feather Army. Firstly, even the Black Feather Army did not have the combined strength of the Wei Wu Army. These people were using their strength to increase their speed. Once they ambushed the Qing army, they ran away and did not stop. It was impossible to catch up to them. Even if they did, they had to face a rank 2. Furthermore, the Wei Wu army was very sharp. After a few ambush attempts, they dispersed the Qing army and ambushed areas that were particularly weak. The soldiers of the Qing army could not understand. The Wei Wu army was famous for being a weak army, right? How had they transformed in such a short period of time? Moreover, putting their strength aside, they could not stand the singing of folk songs. If you wanted to fight, then fight properly. There were even people singing folk songs to liven up their spirits. What was this? The Wei Wu army knew that the comrades had received a command from Zhang Weiyu to disturb the Qing army, and they were very successful. But the Qing army did not know this. They were surprised about how much excess manpower they had to sing songs during a battle. It was as if they were having fun while fighting. The Qing army formation grew smaller and smaller. Everyone held their spears and were on their guard. They would not allow the Wei Wu army to easily ambush them in this formation. Zhang Weiyu, who was at the command center, furrowed his eyebrows. He did not expect the Qing army to be as difficult to deal with as this. Rationally, the Qing army should have been a spent force after escaping. But their fighting spirit did not die. This was the result of an excellent leader. Zhang Weiyu thought about the past. He did not realize that Lu Yizhao had abilities in this area. Seeing that they had no other choice, Zhang Weiyu delivered a command to the people who were guarding the back. Throw stones and break their formation. Soon after, the Wei Wu army carried the massive boulders that they usually carried for training up the mountain. They threw the boulders down without any hesitation. Each boulder was over 2 tons. Even practitioners did not dare to take on a falling boulder. Although they would not die from it, their formation would be broken. It was not that the Qing army was too weak. The Wei Wu army had just taken advantage of the geography and their strength in numbers. They would not lose. If Lu Yizhao had expected that there was an army stationed here, he could have taken a detour and spread the fight against the Wei Wu army over the mountains. But they did not expect an army to be stationed here. The Qing army had no choice but to avoid the boulders. While their formation was broken, the soldiers from the Wei Wu army, who had been hiding in the limestone caves, charged at them. Lu Yizhao stood in the battlefield and calmly assessed the whole situation. He realized that the Wei Wu army was still the Wei Wu army he knew. His impression of the Wei Wu army was of soldiers who were cowardly and afraid to die. But their commander was very smart. They had increased their strength and allowed them to pick on an easy target. This made the soldiers of the Wei Wu army slowly think that they were very powerful. They grew more daring as well. Lu Yizhao was very clear that now, the Wei Wu army lacked the chance to train as an army. The Qing army had come at a perfect time. They fulfilled the needs of the Wei Wu army in terms of their strength and manpower. There was someone powerful behind the scenes. First, they were able to allow the entire Wei Wu army to advance rapidly. It was not through any cheap tricks. He knew that techniques had been employed here. But advancing so quickly would injure their vital channels. However, upon closer inspection, the soldiers of the Wei Wu army were full of energy. They did not seem to be in any pain. Lu Yizhao was very certain that there was a powerful person in charge. The rise of the Wei Wu army was inevitable. If the Qing army could not defeat them, the Black Feather army might lose to them in the future. Then, did they have any other big plans? The situation was hopeless. This was Lu Yizhao's judgment towards the Qing army. He felt slightly lonely. He had been in charge of this army for over a decade. They had been destroyed in a fight, and now they were the whetstones for the Wei Wu army. If the Qingxai army was well organized, so what if the Wei Wu army was strong? Lu Yizhao suddenly said in a loud and clear voice, "The Qingxai army is willing to surrender. Although I don't want to give up, I am willing to leave the Qingxai army. Please give the Qingxai army a chance to live." Then, he put his hands behind his back and waited for a response. Even after he admitted defeat, Lu Yizhao maintained a proud posture as he was an imperial dragon soldier who served the king. The soldiers of the Qingxai army all quietly looked at Lu Yizhao. They knew that their leader was very prideful. He had admitted defeat to exchange for their lives. Everyone quietened down. At that moment, "The young lady is like a flower, but she got married to a midget," the folk song continued to echo through the mountains. The folk song continued from another mountain. "She wanted to find a good husband. Why not marry a midget?" Lu Yizhao was speechless. From Lu Yizhao's distress, plus 666. Only the Wei Wu army dared to sing in the quiet mountains. Lu Yizhao wordlessly looked at the mountains. This was official business. "Could you stop for just a moment?" The Qingxai army was surrounded by folk songs in the Tunyun Mountains. But there was no way out. Chapter 919, A Big Misunderstanding. In this world, the old king of gods led an army to surround a formidable man. After they surrounded him, the old king of gods made them shout war songs, causing the man to fall into despair. This dampened his fighting spirit. If Lu Shu knew about this, he would say that the old king of gods was shameless. But now, Lu Yizhao suddenly felt as if he was the formidable man, but the problem was, war songs were not sung. Folk songs filled the mountains. What in the world? He wanted to experience what it was like for a formidable man to reach the end of the road. It was like the story of the hegemon king, one that had been passed down by mouth. But the problem was, the young man and young lady in the folk songs made him lose interest in minutes. This was a completely different feeling. There was definitely something wrong with this. But the soldiers of the Wei Wu army who were singing folk songs had no choice. They had not received orders to stop singing. It was unclear whether the Wei Wu army had learned anything from their training, but they had learned the strict enforcement of orders and prohibitions. If the Great Lord and the commanders did not tell them to stop, they would not stop. The few Wei Wu army soldiers who were singing in the quiet mountains forced themselves to continue singing, while the others watched them sing. The stark difference between expectation and reality almost caused the singing soldiers to collapse. Suddenly, they felt as if they had been relieved of a heavy load. They had received a new order from their Great Lord that they could stop. Li Haitan strutted out of the limestone cave. He stood in front of the entire Qingxai army. "The Great Lord has asked you to make a detour to the east. We have released the captured soldiers to meet you there." Lu Yizhao was dumbfounded. Were their conditions so simple? All they had to do was take a detour. This was not rational. They should have taken this opportunity to enjoy the benefits of defeating the Qingxai army. It was a common practice to take in the losing army as slaves. As long as they were taken in as slaves, no matter whether they were willing or not, they could only fight for their new slave owner in the future. Lu Yizhao could not understand. "Why won't you take in the Qingxai army?" Li Haitan said in a low, muffled voice, "The Wei Wu army doesn't have enough grains to feed you. Go away." At the Qinglu mountain, Lu Shu suddenly covered his face and sighed. He did not make Li Haitan say that. It was the perfect time to act. He could say that they admired the moral courage of the Qingxai army or something like that. If he spoke like a hero, it might be recorded down in the history books and become a much-told tale. But now, everyone knew that the Wei Wu army was very poor. What would the history books say? The Wei Wu army rejected the Qingxai army because they were too poor. This sounded very depressing. But Lu Yizhao did not leave. "Can I see your great lord?" Lu Shu stopped practicing his swordplay in the limestone cave. He furrowed his eyebrows and thought about it. Why did Lu Yizhao want to see him? He passed a message to Li Haitan through the Treaty of Alliance. Li Haitan said the Great Lord said no. At that moment, Lu Yizhao suddenly took out a few piles of notes out of thin air. This is half of the savings from the Qingxai army, accumulated over more than a decade in Nanging City. I would like to exchange this for an opportunity to meet the Great Lord. Li Haitan was filled with deep veneration. You can definitely make friends with the Great Lord. Lu Shu almost started swearing in the limestone cave. Could you say this kind of thing out loud? Lu Yizhao's clothes fluttered in the wind and he flew towards the Qinglu mountain. When he arrived, Zhang Weiyu and the rest did not appear, but Lu Xiaoyu had brought the bishop back on time. When Lu Yizhao saw Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu, he was filled with doubt. It was not his first time seeing them. But when he had seen them over 2 months ago, they were still nameless practitioners. How did they become great lords in such a short period of time? Lu Yizhao had looked at Lu Xiaoyu in doubt before. He was sensitive to physiques, thus he was able to sense the rank 2 waves of energy from Lu Xiaoyu's body. Back then, he knew that Lu Xiaoyu was definitely not an ordinary person. After all, she had reached rank 2 at such a young age. He only knew people from aristocrat families who were heirs that could do so. Since ordinary people did not have natural talents, it would be very difficult for them to achieve such strength without resources. But Lu Yizhao had never expected that their identities had swapped in the 2 months since they had last met. Furthermore, the waves of energy from the old man behind Lu Shu with a pink scarf were about the same level as him. Lu Shu laughed cheerily. Don't act rashly. One wrong move and the entire Qingxai army will be dead. Great Lord, please do not worry. Lu Yizhao smiled. I did not come here to capture the king and defeat the troops. I simply wanted to see how the Great Lord that had defeated my Qingxai army looked like. But since the Great Lord is here, Lord Zhang Weiyu must be here as well. The moment he saw Lu Shu, Lu Yizhao knew that the techniques the Weiwu army possessed were from various people. He had asked Zhang Weiyu whether Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu were related to Zhang Weiyu, but Zhang Weiyu denied this. However, as a bearer of a high position, Lu Yizhao was not simple in his thoughts. He was used to thinking about the complex relationships between people. This would allow him to settle down to career and life early. Thus, he assumed that Zhang Weiyu had always been with Lu Shu, and had helped Lu Shu complete the transformation of the Weiwu army. In reality, it was a coincidence that Lu Shu bumped into Zhang Weiyu, but Lu Yizhao did not think that this was the case. Thus, Lu Shu suddenly sensed agitation from Lu Yizhao that was hard to conceal. It was not anger, but excitement. What was this? Lu Shu felt that there was something wrong. He did not know that Lu Yizhao knew Zhang Weiyu's identity. Back then, Zhang Weiyu was the head of the Imperial Palace soldiers. He was a commander of the Imperial Dragon soldiers and led over 3,000 of them. How could this kind of person help someone else train their army for no apparent reason? Furthermore, the Imperial Palace soldiers like Zhang Weiyu had always been in the fields. There had to be some reason behind this. After he returned, he sent people to investigate Zhang Weiyu. He realized that although Zhang Weiyu had suffered for many years, he had not moved from the fields. What were they waiting for? But now, Zhang Weiyu and the rest had left the fields. What did this mean? It meant that what Zhang Weiyu and the rest had been waiting for arrived. Lu Yizhao was also waiting for that person. That person had made him wait in Nanging City for over a decade and conceal his strength. Thinking back now, Nanging City was the closest city to the fields, right? It was as if everything had aligned perfectly. He had not spent the past decade waiting for nothing. Lu Shu and Lu Xiaoyu looked at each other helplessly. They both felt that there was something wrong. Lu Yizhao said that he wanted to come and see him, but he suddenly started to space out. He even started laughing nervously time and again. Lu Shu was absolutely terrified. Zhang Weiyu and the rest walked out of the limestone cave. These people were very shrewd. When they saw Lu Yizhao's excited state, Zhang Weiyu slapped his own forehead. It's over. Lu Yizhao might be on our side. What a big misunderstanding. Chapter 920, What a coincidence. At this moment, Lu Yizhao almost fell to his knees when he confirmed his speculation after seeing Zhang Weiyu and the rest. Zhang Weiyu shook his head. This is not the king. Lu Shu was unhappy. Why was someone challenging his authority? Did Zhang Weiyu lose his spirit, or did King Lu say he was not going to attack? If I am not the king, are you? Isn't this the King Lu mountain? Is your surname Lu, or is my surname Lu? Zhang Weiyu looked extremely stunned. We are not talking about the same king. You are talking about the king of the King Lu mountain, while we are talking about the king of gods in this world. From Zhang Weiyu's distress, plus 666. Only Zhang Weiyu and the rest knew what misunderstanding Lu Yizhao had. However, it was really a coincidence that Zhang Weiyu bumped into Lu Shu. They left the town because the Black Feather Army was really too ferocious and they would die in vain if they stayed there. At this moment, Lu Yizhao's eyes lit up when he heard Lu Shu. He admitted it? And his surname was really Lu. Why did this world take the name of a Luniverse? The name was changed by the King of Gods after the palace was built. In the past, it was called a universe. Zhang Weiyu rolled his eyes. Forget it, they were just going to make things worse. Lu Yizhao said to Lu Shu, the Qingxai army is willing to join forces with the Weiwu army. If Sir is worried, I, Lu Yizhao, can be your slave and fight for you. There was no such thing as unconditional love in this world, neither was there any unconditional hatred. Lu Shu kept silent for 2 seconds. Did you say this because of my looks? Please be respectful, I am not someone like that. Lu Yizhao did not care about that. He waited for more than 10 years and finally saw the light. Who would care about what the other party said? He knelt on one knee. I will obey whatever you say, Your Majesty. I will do anything for you. Zhang Weiyu and the rest swarmed forward to carry Lu Yizhao away. Your Majesty, let us talk about this in private. Lu Yizhao did not struggle violently as he thought that Zhang Weiyu and the rest had something to tell him. Did he do anything wrong? Meanwhile, Lu Shu suddenly smiled when he saw the back of Zhang Weiyu and the rest. So it looks like Zhang Weiyu is indeed on the same side of the King of Gods. However, Lu Yizhao probably got the wrong person. What should we do? Lu Xiaoyu spoke after thinking, just get some money. I calculated and our crops need about 2 months before ripening. There will be 1 month without crop supply. If we have money, I can go and buy some food at the back of Weibei Pass. Yes, money is important, Lu Yizhao nodded. No matter what, Lu Yizhao gave us a lot of money. Lu Shu calmed down. He knew that there was some misunderstanding. Lu Shu noticed the change in the expressions of Lu Yizhao after Zhang Weiyu and the others appeared. He thought that Zhang Weiyu's identity must have given Lu Yizhao some misunderstanding. Therefore, if he was correct, Lu Yizhao and Zhang Weiyu knew each other long ago and were always the followers of the old King of Gods. Everything seemed to be getting more complicated. Lu Shu sighed. Initially, he did not want to get involved with Zhang Weiyu, but now he was definitely getting more involved. Lu Shu was not stupid, he only wanted to watch the show. In the back of the cave, Zhang Weiyu said firmly, although I do not know who gave you the command to manage Nanging City, I have to say that I met Lu Shu coincidentally and we are unrelated after we parted ways in town. Lu Yizhao shook his head. I don't believe it, all of you are lying to me. All of you lied to me previously and now you are lying to me again. Lu Yizhao was brought up by Zhang Weiyu. The incident that happened 23 years ago was done by the Imperial Palace. As they did not want to get the Imperial Dragon soldiers involved, they lied and said that they were doing a normal task. I did that for all of you. Zhang Weiyu was slightly pissed off. Lu Yizhao nodded. I didn't know that Sir wanted to put me onto the front lines, but I, Lu Yizhao, am not afraid of death. Zhang Weiyu was stunned. Didn't I make myself clear? The Sir told him that since all of you are farming the land, why did all of you appear here? Lu Yizhao asked calmly and looked extremely stern. We are here to flee from the Black Feather Army. Such a small world. The world was indeed small. Zhang Weiyu felt speechless. Yes, the world was so huge and yet he bumped into Lu Shu coincidentally. Let me ask Sir Zhang. Since everyone coincidentally came in touch with the king, why did you stay to train his Weiwu army? Lu Yizhao was very calm and was confident about his deduction. After organizing his thoughts, Zhang Weiyu said, Look, I will describe the process for you. We met him after we escaped to this tunnel and ate some food as we were starving. However, halfway through the meal, he told us to leave and asked someone to clear our plates then. Lu Yizhao broke off his sentence. This must be made up by you, Sir Zhang. Why would there be such people in this world? Zhang Weiyu almost spat out blood. He said from the bottom of his heart, he is really this type of person. From Zhang Weiyu's distress, plus 999. Stop bringing this up, said Lu Yizhao, I can do whatever you can do for the king too. I know that you don't trust me yet, but it's all right, time will prove everything. Furthermore, I am willing to become a slave. I won't be able to betray him once I become a slave, right? I will prove my loyalty with my actions. From Lu Yizhao's perspective, Zhang Weiyu and the rest did not tell Lu Shu his identity because he was afraid that he would harm Lu Shu. He did it to protect Lu Shu. After completing his sentence, Lu Yizhao turned around and looked for Lu Shu. Zhang Weiyu and the rest were unable to stop him as, after all, they were ordinary people and Lu Yizhao was a solid rank 1. Zhang Weiyu and the rest looked at each other at the back. What should we do? What else can we do? Dong Yi said helplessly, we initially tricked him and now he refuses to trust us. Moreover, he felt that we made up all the coincidences to protect Lu Shu. Now, we can't really do anything. The critical point is, if I were him, I would also refuse to believe that everything is a pure coincidence. However, everything really is a coincidence. Suddenly, someone said, hold on, have any of you thought about going with the flow and treating Lu Shu as the new king and pushing him to be our shield? Once the new king appears, nobody would notice Lu Shu. Zhang Weiyu suddenly became serious. Shut up, this battle concerns life and death, don't kill an innocent person. All of you know that Lu Shu is a good person with immense potential. Our business is our business, did you forget the lesson the old king of gods gave us? The person who made the comment earlier on said, I am wrong, I will not bring it up again.
What does it mean to be happy? Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty. Man, we just putting on a show. Try to look to the heavens to tell us things that we